Something subtle and decisive is already happening behind closed doors, and it may show up on the scoreboard far sooner than anyone expected. Barcelona did not just return from a pre-season tour. They returned with time, extra days on the training pitch, calm tactical work, and players spared the mad sprint many top clubs endured. Real Madrid, by contrast, carved their preparation into a hurry. A short turnaround from their US tour to the Bernabeu kickoff. A narrow window to install ideas, get match sharpness and integrate newcomers. That gap, only a few weeks on a calendar, but an eternity in football preparation, is the quiet story that could hand Barca an early psychological and tactical edge that ripples through the standings. Time buys you more than conditioning. It buys clarity. It buys rehearsed patterns of play that can be executed under pressure. When a team has been able to spend training days working on pressing triggers, positional rotations and set-piece routines, the first competitive fixtures become a laboratory in which those rehearsed habits show, while the opponent still looks like a work in progress. Imagine two orchestras showing up to play a symphony, one that held daily rehearsals and can now perform fluently, and another that met only a handful of times and is still figuring out the conductor's counting. The audience, the fans, referees, rival coaches notices the difference from the first bar. Coaches and analysts often talk about squad depth and individual talent as the engines of success, and they're right, up to a point. But football is a collective sport of patterns and responses. A striker's timing depends on the midfielder's tempo. A defensive line's spacing hinges on the fullback's movement. Those micro details are what a long pre-season polishes. And those are the exact details that create chances, shut down counters, and tip close games in favour of the more prepared side. Beyond the physical and tactical, there is a pressure dynamic that rarely gets enough credit. If Barcelona struts into the season looking cohesive and confident, they start converting the scoreboard into a narrative. Barcelona are the team in form. Madrid are still finding themselves. Fans and pundits amplify that storyline. Suddenly, Real Madrid, regardless of name or history, face not only an opponent on the field, but a mood in the stadium and a media narrative that can change how referees interpret close calls, how managers set lineups, and how players handle stressful moments. Managers who need time to imprint a new style, to teach pressing triggers, positional rotations, or build trust in a backline are especially vulnerable to a compressed pre-season. A coach who has had the luxury of 2 months to refine a system is already 3 or 4 tactical cycles ahead of a coach who had to rush. That difference shows up in the way teams manage the opening 30 minutes of matches. The composed pass out from the back. The immediate understanding of when to press as a unit. The instinctive runs that break a defensive shape. It also shows in minutes management, which players come into games in the 70th minute and who can be trusted to close out leads. Let's be clear, a rushed preseason doesn't doom a great squad. Real Madrid's players are world-class, and a few early hiccups won't decide a season single-handedly. But football seasons are long, and early runs matter. A compact stretch of fixtures where you pick up an extra 2 or 4 points while your rival stumbles can be the difference between breathing room and punishing pressure. Those early points force the chasing team into chasing risks, changing formations, overplaying, or making substitutions that don't align with long-term strategy. So, when pundits talk about titles being decided in April and May, don't ignore what happens in September and October. A month of polished performance can calcify into a points buffer, and a buffer changes psychology. This is why the pre-season conversation matters. It's not glamour, it's grunt work. Sessions at dawn in training kits, repetitions of the same pass, sprints and tactical drills until responses are automatic. That's where the intangible of readiness is forged. And the consequence is concrete. Patterns executed under pressure. Calming control when the crowd turns hostile. And a manager's plan surviving the first chaotic stretches of a season. As we watch the opening fixtures unfold, keep an eye on the signs of preparation. Does one side look sharper in transitions? Are set plays being defended with rehearsal rather than guesswork? Does one midfield appear to anticipate movements rather than react to them? Those early cues will tell a story louder than pre-match hype. In the end, the bigger lesson is universal. Preparation is a competitive advantage, and in modern football, every advantage is magnified. Barcelona's longer, calmer preseason could be the quiet lever that tilts the title race toward them in the months ahead, forcing Real Madrid into catch-up mode. The next time you hear pundits debating transfers and wages, remember this. Sometimes the difference between glory and regret lives in the fine print of the calendar, in the extra training day when ideas became habits, and in the first few matches when a prepared team turned time into points.